Welcome everybody, my name is Tina Smith and I work for Cumbria Library Services, and today I'm going to be chatting to David Banning, author of Boundary Songs, Notes from the Edge of the Lake District National Park. So thank you for joining us this afternoon, David, and for giving up your time.
No problem.
So first off, can you tell us what gave you the idea for the book?
Well, I think it's, you have to sort of go back to 2017 when I first started thinking about another project after writing my first book, which was a film guidebook about the Lake District in Cumbria. I wanted to do quite a big project, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I felt ready for a bit of a challenge. There were a number of factors at play, I suppose, in the news, and at that particular time there was lots of fallout from like the Scottish referendum. There was a lot of, we had the 2015 migrant crisis, and perhaps the biggest events at the end of 2016 would be the Brexit referendum, and then of course which led to Donald Trump getting elected in America. So there was all these quite seismic events that happened, and I felt that I needed to try and interpret them and find a way to engage with it and try and work out what my opinion was. At that time, I had just moved back to the lakes. I tended to lead quite a yo-yo existence from north to south, south to north. So I think that was feeding into it as well, and so for me it was an opportunity to try and write about the Lake District again, and I was trying to find a way in.
As we should say, the book is very much not a guide, it's part memoir, it's part what you found out about yourself as well as the places you were walking through. And I imagine quite a lot of preparation went into that walk, because didn't you do it in stages?
Yeah, I mean it's not a guide at all. It's a bit of everything really. The thing about it is that I suppose I had to use something as a term of reference. So to have a book that had the walk was fantastic, because as I say, it broke it down into I think it's about 13, 14, 15 stages. Because it's about 160 miles or so to go around the boundary of the national park, so it's not just a couple of days. And so that kind of gave me all the different, the breakup of the topography and where I was going to go.
Did you have preconceptions about what you might find around the edgelands of the Lake District? And if so, were any of those dispelled or reinforced during the walk?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, to be honest, I've lived on and off in the lakes for, up to 10 years before I started the project, if you like. So there were a number of different places that I'd seen going to various places and kind of earmarked almost as places to write about. They were really interesting. There was one particular derelict garage on the edge of Silecroft underneath Blackcomb's sort of dome skyline, and it's called Valley End, and it's just so evocative, and that was a place that I really wanted to examine and interpret a bit more. West Coast is just dominated by Sellafield. Sellafield is just this kind of omnipotent presence.
Well, you can see it from miles away as well, can't you, before you get there?
Yeah, it's everywhere. Wherever you are, it seems on that side of the walk. Sellafield was there. It was like this brooding kind of humming presence that just, and it was kind of weird because it's in quite a pastoral landscape, and yet it's this kind of James Bond, Dr. No-esque backdrop, which I found fascinating.
Given that you undertook the walk in autumn and winter, I imagine the weather was not the kindest quite a bit of the time. Were there any really hairy moments you can tell us about when you thought, oh gosh, I'm in over my depth here, I'm in above my head?
Yeah, I mean, there's two very distinctive passages I think that I write about. I mean, as we're talking about Sellafield, I actually went to Sellafield, to the gates of Sellafield, because I wanted to kind of take some pictures and just see almost how far in I could get. And I was quickly called up to the gate and had to have a bit of a exchange with the security there. And I mean, I completely understood that I was perhaps pushing a bit too far. The irony of that was that it was a beautiful evening. I mean, a really gloriously clear, one of the best of evenings, perhaps. And that's what drove me on. I mean, I literally drove like a couple of hours to go and photograph it just in that dusky atmosphere. So that was a bit hairy, just in what that gave birth to. And then, I mean, on the walk itself, there was one particular occasion when I was walking, I was finishing off a stage, going towards Ennerdale Bridge. And I knew I was pushing it with the light, but I got to this old kind of miners' bridge, Monk's Bridge, this place just near the River Calder. Yeah. And it was so nice, and I sat there very peaceful, and I sat there for a good 20 minutes taking all these pictures, which I really shouldn't have done. And that meant that the light really did sort of creep in. And I was actually walking through what the Boundary Walk guidebook that I was referencing, and the chap who wrote that was a guy called Graham Dugdale. He actually described this valley as the wettest possibly in Cumbria. And so, I undertook that. I think I was walking underneath Swarth Fell, or Core Fell, I think it was. But I had the River Calder next to me, so I had a term of reference, which was invaluable. But I started to, as the light was fading, I started to fall into like this very spongy, kind of very grassy landscape. And there were times when I was actually going in up to my waist. It was frightening because
it was getting darker and darker all the time as well.
The sort of the light basically went. I didn't have. I used to use like an OS app quite a lot. I used to rely on that. No signal whatsoever. The classic. I mean, I did everything that you shouldn't do. Basically, it was all wrong.
And tell us a bit about your writing process. How do you go about it?
Well, I mean, for this project, obviously completed the walk, and then I think it was only then that I realised just how much of a big project I was trying to undertake, really. So I had voice notes. I like to kind of write in longhand first before I attempt anything on a computer. I just find it more natural to write that way. So I would listen back to my voice notes and then maybe write them up. And then lots of research in the good old libraries, particularly Kendall Library was invaluable for me. A really good local section there. So lots of research and kind of picking things out that piqued my interest on the walk, and then trying to find out a little bit more about them.
It must have been hugely satisfying when it actually came out to see it in print.
I'm hugely proud of the book in the end, because it was all my own work completely. I did all the sort of design and layout. One of my best friends from way back living in London, an artist called Ian Sharp, did some wonderful drawings that kind of go in between the stages as well, and that was fantastic to involve him in the project as well. because he hadn't been really doing much work for a number of years, so it was kind of like the genesis of getting back to doing some work for him, which was great. So all in all, it felt like a good achievement.
Well, it certainly paid off because you're on the long list for the Lakeland Book of the Year.
Yeah.
So, and being a runner-up in that competition in the past, let's hope you can go at least as far this time with it.
Who knows? There's some big competition this year, so it's just nice to be on the long list.
Well, it's good to be recognised, and it is an absolutely fascinating read, I must say. What about any future projects? What's next in the pipeline?
There is a project that I want to write, and so I'm going to just completely put all the Chroma edition stuff aside and earmark next year to write that up. That will be, I think, probably the third book and final book maybe about the lakes in Cumbria.
Well, that sounds like another interesting, very worthwhile project as well.
I think so.
So thank you very much for joining us this afternoon, and we look forward to seeing the photographs and some of the film footage that goes alongside the book as well.
You're very welcome.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
And thank you to everybody for joining us this afternoon. And we should say as well that the book is available to borrow from Cumbria Libraries. Thank you.